Our main character introduces his incredibly ordinary life. He points out he was born into a regular household with zero surprises. His daily routine is nothing but predictable and boring. He always assumes he'll stay a nobody, but fate definitely has other plans. He suddenly mentions how someone actually became the ruler of an entire world. Meanwhile, back in reality, the sun sets over his totally average apartment complex. Finally, alone in his room, our boy loosens his tie, ready to escape the real world. He admits he couldn't care less about his actual life at school. All he really needs to be happy is some quality solo gaming time. He eagerly cracks his knuckles, absolutely pumped to finally be the main character. He loves that in single-player games, he can just save and reload whenever things go south. And by slapping on some cheat codes, he effortlessly transforms into an absolute powerhouse. In his mind, these digital worlds exist for one purpose: completely serve the player. Rushing off his own monologuing, he decides it's time to actually get to work. He boots up his system and goes live to the internet. His chat instantly starts rolling in with a wave of viewer notifications. People start analyzing his playstyle, leaving him totally confused on whether they're praising or roasting him. Suddenly, a viewer drops a $10 donation, immediately catching his attention. He beams with pride, fully prepared to shower the viewer with thanks. But right on cue, a user named DEA casually drops a massive $1,000 donation. His eyes literally bulge out of his skull in pure shock. He desperately grips his monitor, trying to process if the money is actually real. The chat goes wild, pointing out that DEA just sent him a private email with a special request. Still sweating bullets, he quickly checks his inbox to see what the big spender wants. The message reveals DEA is an indie dev with an impossibly hard game that no beta tester can beat, asking for his totally private feedback offstream. The fact that literally nobody has cleared it immediately hooks his gamer pride. He reads over the challenge, deeply intrigued by the mystery game. A massive grin spreads across his face as he realizes this could be his chance to finally become someone special. Without hesitating, he pulls up the prompt and smashes the install button. He aggressively clicks his mouse, hyped beyond belief to dive right in. Mysterious game Hero's Destiny successfully launches. The intro lore drops, challenging the player to defeat a resurrected evil god in exchange for getting a single wish granted. Spawning into a bizarre, watery skybox, he notes the graphics are honestly a bit mid. And again, he admits it's pretty impressive for a solo developer. Prompt pops up asking for his character's name to officially begin. His fingers fly across the keyboard, already knowing exactly what alias to use. He registers as Game Master and is instantly welcomed to the Aren continent. He spawns into a super generic forest wearing absolute starter gear. Assuming the controls are standard, he figures there's no need for a boring tutorial. He confidently takes his very first step into the new world. Instantly, an NPC village chief approaches and asks what brings him to town. He pauses, totally confused when no dialogue options appear on the screen. Realizing he has to type out his own custom response, he starts hammering away at the keys. Feeling chaotic, he boldly demands all their gold and threatens to wipe out the whole village. He nervously gulps, waiting to see how the game's AI handles his wild threat. The old man snaps, calling him an insolent scoundrel before whacking him directly in the face with a heavy wooden stick. Our boy drops like a sack of potatoes, his screen instantly fading to black. A massive "you died" screen pops up over his bloody corpse, leaving him completely flabbergasted that the NPC actually understood him. Instead of rage quitting, a competitive fire ignites in his eyes and he aggressively clicks to restart, entirely ready for round 2. The old village chief asks him the exact same question again. This time, the MC pivots hard, putting on a pathetic puppy dog face and claiming he's starving. The old man totally falls for it, taking pity and leading him into town while our guy secretly smirks. Inside a cozy house, the chief hands him a mug and tells him to rest up. Without a single second thought, the MC completely chugs the mysterious drink. Suddenly, he collapses as the system casually announces he was just poisoned with a slow, impending death. He slumps in the chair like a sack of potatoes as the iconic "you died" screen brutally mocks him again. But instead of raging, he gets a wickedly clever idea. He reaches behind his PC and literally yanks the internet cable right out of the machine. He laughs maniacally, completely convinced the dev can't control the game offline. But when he restarts, the NPC glitches out while the MC purposefully spams absolute gibberish into the chat box. Boom, he gets clapped again, bleeding out because the game literally ripped his tongue off for spewing nonsense. He stares at his screen, completely flabbergasted that the game is still working perfectly without Wi-Fi. He starts suspecting that the donor D might actually be an entire covert team of developers. Glancing at his clock, he realizes it's almost 2 a.m. and time absolutely flew by. Knowing he needs sleep, he reluctantly hits the save button to call it a night. He reflects on how insanely immersive Hero's Destiny is. Lying in bed, he completely understands why all the beta testers got filtered out. But his eyes glint in the dark, he's officially addicted to the challenge. The next day, the sun shines over his perfectly average apartment complex. Before he even realizes it, he's right back at his desk, mashing the load button. Suddenly, a voice snaps him out of his thoughts. Turns out, he's just sitting in his incredibly boring office cubicle. pretty coworker swings by to hand him some finished files. He thanks her, casually checking if she's wrapping up her shift. Seeing her opening, she shoots her shot and asks him out for some chicken and beer. But our boy instantly swerves her, making up a lame excuse about having an urgent mission at home. He grabs his coat and completely dips, leaving her hanging. He sighs, totally annoyed that he blew her off yet again. Back in his gaming chair, he locks in, swearing to finally conquer the game tonight. Fast forward and a massive congratulatory message pops up, declaring him the first human to ever clear the game. He throws a massive fist pump, beaming with pure, unfiltered victory. He achieved his dream of becoming special in a virtual world. But as he stares at his desk, reality comes crashing back. He realizes absolutely nothing about his actual life has changed. Leaning back, he just feels an overwhelming sense of emptiness. The game was so good, he felt like he was living an entirely parallel life. He fondly remembers the complex characters, like the brooding Black Prince, and the cunning Cardinal, along with the mysterious witch pulling the strings. To him, everyone in that world felt uniquely alive. He genuinely felt like he was living alongside real people. Rubbing his tired eyes, he tries to accept that the journey is over. Suddenly, a sharp notification sound makes him jump. A wild new prompt appears, asking if he wants to start a new adventure, but warns there's absolutely no turning back. He wonders if it's a secret bonus stage or an unreleased sequel. He doesn't even care, he just desperately wants that adrenaline rush back. He aggressively clicks yes, but his screen instantly fries him with a massive electric shock. His vision fades to black as an eerie voice welcomes him as a disciple. Panic sets in as his chest literally feels like it's on fire. He violently gasps for air, realizing he's about to be sucked into the game for real. The MC wakes up groaning, totally confused because he was just sitting in his room a second ago. An older, distinguished-looking man stands over him, stating that without top-tier potions, he would have been dead by sunrise. The mysterious man formally addresses him as young Master Calyx. He lies in bed, looking completely exhausted and shell-shocked. Staring blankly at the stranger, he weakly asks who the man is. The older man looks deeply concerned, noting to himself that the healer never mentioned amnesia as a side effect. Sitting up in a panic, our boy desperately demands to know where he is. The man places a hand over his heart and respectfully introduces himself as Russell. The MC is absolutely baffled, realizing the foreign words coming out of his own mouth aren't Korean. He completely trips out over how he can fluently understand this alien language. But more importantly, suddenly a searing pain shoots through his chest, making him clutch his heart as Russell shouts in panic. Russell quickly apologizes, realizing he overwhelmed the young master way too soon. He explains that the intense pain is just the healing potion, awakening his previously dulled senses. Seeing the rough shape the kid is in, Russell admits his recovery might take a bit longer than expected. He respectfully bows out, promising to check back in the morning as he closes the heavy double doors. Left completely alone in the dim candlelight, the MC groans in pure agony. He lets out a heavy sigh, trying to process the absolute madness happening to him. Barefoot, he slowly creeps across the floorboards to investigate his new room. Standing in front of a full-length mirror, his worst suspicions are confirmed. Staring at a completely unfamiliar reflection, he notes that his entire body feels different. Then a terrifying thought hits him. He actually can't remember his own real name. He violently grips his hair, completely losing his marbles because he remembers his whole 30-year life, but his actual identity is just gone. Staring wildly into the mirror, he desperately asks his reflection who the heck he is. Suddenly, a glowing blue hologram flashes right out of his chest. He stares at the floating player information screen, completely stunned. Realizing it's the exact status window from Hero's Destiny, everything finally clicks. He remembers the game's final warning prompt and realizes the system literally ice-skated him into the game. Looking back at a memory of his empty PC setup, the brutal truth sets in. The place he's currently standing in is the main setting of the impossibly hard game. The Iren continent itself, he forces himself to take some deep breaths to avoid a full-blown panic attack. He stands quietly by the bookshelf, clutching his chest as he tries to gather his thoughts. Another massive throb of pain hits him right in his stab wound. He collapses to the floor like a ragdoll, trembling in absolute agony. But the intense pain serves as a brutal reality check. This definitely isn't a dream. Crawling on the floor, he decides his absolute best survival strategy is to fully embrace his new identity as Calyx Shesin. As he repeatedly mutters his new name to himself, the glowing status window flashes open again, revealing he can summon it just by thinking. His eyes sparkle with gamer excitement, thrilled that he actually has his own exclusive system menu. Flashing a wicked grin, he knows surviving this brutal world is going to be insanely tough. Analyzing his stats, he zeroes in on his brand new noble status. Realizing his last name matches the Count's house, he absolutely hypes himself up, realizing he spawned in as a high-class noble. Suddenly, a sharp knock at the door makes him aggressively flinch. His heart pounds out of his chest as he frantically tries to play it cool, terrified of getting busted as a fake. Outside the door stands a maid, patiently waiting for a response. He calls out, softly letting him know it's time for his medicine. Recognizing it's just a servant, he takes a deep breath and solemnly orders her inside. She steps into the grand bedroom, politely thanking her lord. He announces she's brought his prescribed remedy for the night. Kneeling gracefully by his bed, she offers him a steaming cup before it gets cold. But the second our boy gets a good look at her face, he stutters, instantly recognizing who she really is in the game's lore. He realizes he can't just ask a maid her name without looking completely sus and blowing his cover. The maid kneels, asking if he's alright, when the system window suddenly flashes. He quickly stutters that he's fine, realizing he doesn't even need to ask her name directly. He uses the system to pull up her character info, revealing her name is Lila. He makes a mental note of her name to keep his act together. But looking closer, he zeroes in on her affiliation, House of Viscount Koshelin. He narrows his eyes, wondering why she's affiliated with Koshelin instead of his own house, Shesin. Then his eyes widen as he spots something even crazier. Her combat capabilities are completely insane. Class 3 means she's received elite military training. He stares at her, baffled as to why a top-tier fighter is working as a simple maid. Putting the puzzle pieces together, he realizes a maid from a rival house is bringing him meds right after a near-fatal injury. He violently gulps, realizing he absolutely cannot drink that medicine under any circumstances. Lila respectfully urges him to go ahead and drink up. He tries to play it off, telling her to just set it down, but she hits him with a creepy smile and insists he drink it now. Sweating bullets, he realizes she's practically force-feeding him, so he decides to make a bold move. Taking a sudden, sharp chest pain, he flinches and accidentally knocks the bowl right out of her hands. As the bowl falls, Lila's expression completely shifts. In a flash of insane speed, she swoops in like an absolute ninja. He reaches out, completely stunned, as she dives gracefully toward the floor. He glares up at him with deadly eyes, catching him totally off guard. She perfectly catches the bowl before a single drop hits the floor. He realizes if he makes eye contact, she'll know he dropped it on purpose. He doubles over, keeping up his Oscar-worthy act of groaning in pain. Lila places the perfectly saved medicine back on the tray with a chilling clink. Panicking, he tells himself to prepare for the absolute worst-case scenario. He wobbles on the bed, absolutely convinced the drink is poisoned and determined not to swallow a drop. He knows he has to let the current tension pass first if he wants to survive this. Suddenly, Lila grabs him by the shoulders to support him. She asks if he's alright and he weakly nods, hoping she actually bought his terrible acting. While she's close, he pulls up the system again to figure out who House Koshelin really is. Digging into the game's lore, he remembers he was born to the Count's first wife, and he has a half-brother from the second wife. He realizes his half-brother is actually a year older than him. Then it clicks, the stepmother's maiden name is Koshelin. He pieces it all together. Lila is a maid sent directly by his wicked stepmother. And she just so happens to be a highly trained, elite assassin. If he kicks the bucket, his older half-brother is completely guaranteed to inherit the entire house. A crazy smirk crosses his face as he realizes the deadly game has already begun. This is exactly the brutal challenge he expected. He finally sits up, thanking her and claiming he feels better. But then he drops a loaded question, casually asking how Mother is doing with a subtle, knowing smile. Lila visibly flinches, totally caught off guard by the bold question. Recovering quickly, she lies smoothly, saying the Countess is deeply worried about his attempts to harm himself. He stays silent, realizing the official cover story is that the original Calyx tried to end his own life. Judging by the chest wound, he deduces Calyx must have stabbed himself. Yeah, right. He plays along, promising he won't worry her again. Lila gives a creepy, dead-eyed stare, saying the Countess will be glad to hear that. He dismisses her, telling her she can leave now. But her eyes glow with a murderous glint as she coldly reminds him he hasn't taken his medicine yet. Actual chills run down his spine. He stares at her in pure horror, realizing she's going to stand there and literally make sure he chugs the poison. This is terrible. He knows he can't just keep refusing a literal assassin. He might have the mind of a 30-year-old gamer, but his body is just a frail, wounded teenage boy. He considers screaming for help but instantly realizes if he makes a peep, she'll probably just stab him on the spot. He gulps hard, sweating profusely because he knows if he makes one wrong move right now, he is absolutely cooked. He stares at the maid, realizing he might actually be forced to drink this poison. But wait a second, he thinks. Why use poison? Why not just stab him and make a run for it? Looking at Lila's fake smile, it all clicks. They care about public opinion. They're using a slow-acting poison to make his assassination look entirely natural. He immediately identifies the nasty brew as slowly impending death. Lila steps closer, creepily offering to assist him with his drink. Clenching his fist, he remembers his years of grinding this brutal game. He learned one golden rule. Always expect the absolute worst, suspect everyone, and stay ready. He knows stalling will just make her suspicious. A wicked grin spreads across his face as he gets hyped. The game is already backing him into a corner. Playing it cool, he smoothly takes the cup from her hands. Without a single hesitation, he brings the bowl to his lips. He completely chugs the toxic brew. Lila watches with cold, dead eyes as he downs the whole thing. Instantly, the system flashes, confirming he's been poisoned. He absolutely knew it. His mind races at 1,000,000 miles an hour, desperately searching for a survival strat. He flashes back to Russell, mentioning those top-tier healing potions. Russell is the key. Handing the empty bowl back, he orders Lila to go fetch the old butler immediately. When she hesitates, he goes full arrogant noble mode. He loudly yells at her to get out, perfectly playing the part of a spoiled brat. As she bows and leaves, he calculates that Russell used a potion worth an entire castle to save him. The door clicks shut, leaving him to realize Russell didn't hesitate to spend a fortune on him. That definitively proves the butler is a solid ally. Checking to make sure she's gone, he staggers to his feet. He immediately shoves 2 fingers down his throat. He forcefully hurls the poison right onto the floor. Panting heavily, he knows just throwing up isn't going to cut it. He remembers that in Hero's Destiny, there's always a hidden solution nearby. Frantically checking the drawers, he searches for an antidote. Coughing violently, he tears the desk apart, but finds absolutely nothing. Suddenly, the dreaded system prompt warns him that his eyelids are growing heavy. He goes into full panic mode, wrecking the room like a tornado to find the cure. The system warns him again as he heavily staggers backwards. His legs completely give out, dropping him flat onto the rug. Gasping for air, he wonders if dying here means a game over restart or if he'll actually die for real. Just as his vision blurs, something catches his eye. He spots a small ceramic jar tucked underneath the desk. Using his last ounce of strength, he drags his heavy body across the floor. He desperately grabs the strange container. With trembling hands, he pops the lid right off. He takes a cautious sniff to inspect the contents. He immediately gags, practically choking because the stuff smells like straight-up rotten milk. The system helpfully clarifies that it's actually rotten goat's milk. Then it hits him. Early game players know this specific poison can be cured by eating yogurt. Sweating profusely, he desperately prays that this nasty fermented milk counts as yogurt in the game's logic. Dreaded heavy eyelids prompt flashes for the 3rd time. Groaning in agony, he knows he has literally seconds left before it's game over. Gritting his teeth, he mentally curses Lila, swearing he's going to absolutely end her. With no other choice, he aggressively chugs the nasty fermented milk, mentally swearing he'll get his revenge. Suddenly, Russell walks in, calmly asking if he's alright. The MC lies in bed looking completely dazed, wondering if he just experienced déjà vu or a game reset. Russell is understandably confused, but before he can ask, the old butler completely loses it, yelling at the absolute disaster area of a room and scolding him for throwing a temper tantrum. He rants about finding him passed out on the floor, but the MC is just internally celebrating that he actually survived. His heart pounds in his chest. He never wants to feel that terrifying countdown to death ever again. His eyes lock in with pure determination. He'll do absolutely whatever it takes to stay alive. First things first, he decides to peek at Russell's stats. Pulling up the system window, he realizes the butler is actually the deputy count, sitting at a massive level 68. He deduces the old man must have taken charge since the count died without naming an official heir. Seeing his personality listed as an old-fashioned soldier and knowing he used an insanely expensive potion to save him, the MC figures he's trustworthy. He confidently cuts off the old man's rant, addressing him directly as deputy count. Russell pauses, surprised by the formal tone, as the MC decides to lay all his cards on the table. He completely drops the bomb, accusing the maid of poisoning him. But Russell just rubs his chin, stating bluntly that there's zero evidence. The MC mentally curses, realizing the butler isn't his loyal sidekick. He just saved him because it's standard protocol. Russell explains he has a strict duty to serve both him and his half-brother equally until an heir is chosen, so his hands are completely tied. The MC scowls, basically asking if he's just supposed to casually sip poison every night. Russell sighs, noting the young master really must have lost his memories. He drops a harsh reality check. Their noble house is currently completely broke. He points out they should actually be grateful Lila is volunteering there instead of serving her own wealthy family. The MC tightly grips his blanket. If the old man wants hard evidence, he'll serve it to him on a silver platter. He figures the assassin probably thinks he's already dead in his room. Feigning defeat, he tells Russell he'll let the issue slide for now. But he flashes a sly, calculating grin, asking for one little favor. Russell narrows his eyes, realizing this kid is acting completely different from the spoiled brat he used to know. Later that night, a dark figure effortlessly parkers across the castle walls. Hooded assassin lands silently under the moonlight. Peeking around the corner, she spots 2 heavily armored guards patrolling the area. Lila, hiding behind her mask, notes that security has definitely been beefed up. Like an absolute ninja, she drops gracefully through an open window into the hallway. He quietly approaches Calix's room, finding it completely unguarded. He slowly pushes the heavy doors open. Staring into the dark room, she smugly assumes her specialized poison gave him a painless death. She slips over to his desk and casually places down a forged suicide note. He stamps it with the family seal, setting up the perfect crime. Thinking its mission accomplished, she turns to make her escape. Suddenly, a cold steel blade is pressed right against her throat. The MC steps out of the shadows with a completely unhinged look, whispering that she's done enough. Lila freezes like a deer in headlights, completely paralyzed by the sound of his voice. Cut to Lila securely tied to a chair, aggressively coughing and demanding to know what he just force-fed her. The MC casually swirls a ceramic jar, smirking as he tells her it's only fair she gets a taste of her own medicine. He turns up the intimidation factor, casually name-dropping Sedis's puppet, a terrifying dark magic poison. Lila totally flips out, screaming that a spoiled noble could never get his hands on something that dangerous. The MC just smiles coldly, telling her money buys anything before reciting the exact secret ingredients. When he mentions white radish, Lila's face drains of all color. She stares at him in pure horror, stammering to ask how he could possibly know top-secret assassin intel. He just flashes a smug, villainous grin. In his mind, he's absolutely flexing in a medieval world without the internet. Simply reciting game lore makes him look like a god-tier mastermind. Staring down at the tied-up assassin, the MC offers to let her go if she simply reports that the assassination was a total success. Lila scoffs, asking why on earth she would ever listen to his demands. He completely shuts her down, stating bluntly that it's because she wants to live. She grunts as he casually explains that the poison she ingested has over 3,000 different antidotes. And the absolute kicker, the only antidote that will actually cure her specific batch, is locked right inside his big brain. He warns her not to gamble with her life, advising her to just play along and obey. Breathing heavily, Lila realizes she is completely backed into a corner. He instantly snaps, aggressively demanding he hurry up and untie her. He chuckles at her terrible attitude, reminding her she's supposed to be the one begging for help. Realizing he holds all the cards, she instantly starts crying and pleading for mercy. Meanwhile, Russell watches from the shadows, totally convinced she's scheming something devious. Suddenly, a massive, embarrassing growl echoes from her stomach. The MC holds back a laugh, realizing the rotten goat's milk is finally doing its nasty work. He turns to Russell and casually orders him to untie the maid. Russell completely loses his mind, reminding the kid that this woman literally just tried to assassinate him. But our boy just smirks, saying she's an important witness and they should let her keep her last shred of dignity. Russell stares at him blankly, totally confused by the dignity comment. Lila sweats buckets, desperately clenching her legs together so she doesn't explode on the spot. She quickly promises to report the mission as a success before making an absolute mad dash for the bathroom. With the assassin gone, the MC tells Russell he needs someone powerful to control the Knight's Order and fool the mastermind. He knows the loyal butler is the perfect candidate, but he can tell Russell has a million questions. Right on cue, Russell asks how the young master suddenly acquired all this secret knowledge. The MC sweats, knowing the old man won't buy the excuse that he read it in a random book. In this world, publishing dark secrets like that would get an author hanged instantly. He also knows he can't exactly say he got ice-skated from a video game, so he pulls out his absolute best bluff. He asks Russell if he remembers the dagger he recently used to stab himself. Russell nods, clearly confused about what a suicide attempt has to do with anything. The MC claims the dagger is a special keepsake from his late mother that granted him mysterious powers. Russell stares at him, highly skeptical of this magical backstory. The MC realizes he's losing him, silently joking about how crazy it sounds that unlocking the power required a stab to the heart. Russell formally states that if a treasure like that existed, the whole world would know about it. But the MC just smirks and asks if he's ever heard of Ria's dagger. Russell's eyes widen in pure shock, realizing the late Viscountess's old weapon was actually a legendary artifact. The butler totally buys it, admitting that artifact perfectly explains the kid's sudden genius, while the MC secretly laughs because he's never even seen the thing. Getting serious, Russell leans in close. He intensely asks if the young master has told absolutely anyone else about the secret. The MC nervously shakes his head. Relieved, Russell fully accepts the crazy story. Capitalizing on the moment, the MC asks what Russell thinks about Lila's testimony regarding his father. Russell hesitates, bringing up the rumor that the late Count was supposedly followed everywhere. The MC completely shreds the official story, pointing out it's impossible for a near Class 7 knight and his entire elite squad to get wiped out by some petty monster. He pleads with the butler not to believe that absolute garbage cover-up. Russell analyzes the situation, realizing the kid wants his full political support. He admits that questioning the Count's death makes sense, but firmly states there's still zero hard evidence. Gripping his sword tight, the veteran soldier prepares to reject the request. He formally declares that his strict creed is to never get involved in noble politics, but the MC aggressively interrupts him. Staring at the floor, the young master demands to know who was truly behind the assassination. Then he looks up with an absolutely unhinged smile, asking exactly how he should exact his revenge. He screams out, desperately asking why his father had to die in the first place. He leaves the heavy questions hanging in the air, demanding to know who orchestrated the hit so he can finally crush them. He stares down the old knight, demanding to know how he should avenge his father. He bluntly states the obvious: Russell's master was murdered. He stomps his foot, passionately pointing fingers at House Cauchelin. He warns that if his stepbrother Gramween takes the throne, they'll never get justice. Giving a chilling glare, he asks if serving assassins is really what chivalry looks like. Before he can even blink, Russell swooshes forward. The old knight drops to one knee, swearing absolute fealty to the young master. Alex lights up, thrilled to have the captain on his side. But Russell glares back with a terrifying aura, reminding him he just threw away a 60-year creed. Inside, our boy is absolutely hyped, celebrating that he just recruited a Class 6 powerhouse. He successfully manipulated a lone tiger by planting the perfect seed of revenge. Playing the humble card, he asks the swordmaster to stand up, claiming he's just a titleless boy. Russell's eye literally glows red as he promises to make the kid incredibly strong. Panicking, Calyx realizes he needs to change the subject immediately. Before this, Madman makes him run laps with a sword. He quickly pivots, bringing up the Countess's botched poisoning attempt and the fact they have a live witness. A wicked smile spreads across his face as he declares this the start of their revenge. Russell nods in agreement, asking what the grand plan is. Calyx flashes his fangs first. Cut to the sacred grand hall, where the entire noble council is gathered. Countess Stella sits at the head of the table, looking incredibly smug behind her fan. The nobles whisper about the emergency night deployment as Stella takes the floor. She puts on a fake sad face, announcing that Lord Calyx attempted to take his own life using poison. The crowd erupts into murmurs, recognizing the deadly poison she named. The nobles immediately assume the young lord is a goner. Some start arguing that with the eldest son out of the picture, all faction disputes are basically over. Stella hides a wicked smirk, fully expecting her son Gramween to be crowned the next count. But just as they suggest she rule temporarily, a loud voice cuts through the hall. How interesting. Russell vows to follow the young master to hell and back. He steps into the light, decked out in full armor like an absolute boss. Stella and her son snap their heads toward the door in pure shock. The entire council gasps as a familiar blonde head steps forward. Stella's jaw practically hits the floor. Calyx struts into the hall looking like royalty, with Russell acting as his personal bodyguard. Stella internally screams, entirely baffled as to how he survived. The nobles whisper frantically, wondering why the deputy count is backing the boy. Stella seethes with absolute rage. Calyx points right at her, aggressively declaring she has no right to sit in that chair. Trying to save face, she fakes a sweet smile and tells him to call her mother. Calyx just grins back, loudly announcing to the whole room that someone poisoned him, but he threw it up. He drops her name directly, calling her impatient, making the countess violently flinch. She immediately plays the victim card, acting offended by the accusation. He screams that he can't just accuse her of murder without proof. Russell steps up like a brick wall, reminding her that words have consequences in the grand hall. Calyx laughs, wondering if she'll keep up this cocky attitude once the truth comes out. Stella sweats bullets, trying to maintain her innocent act. Calyx just claps his hands twice, giving the signal. He dramatically announces it's time to hear from their star witness. Knight drags Lila into the room, tied up like a sack of potatoes. The crowd is totally confused, but Stella stares in absolute horror, realizing she is completely cooked. Calyx steps up to the center of the hall and orders the tied-up maid to state her name for the record. Lila nervously glances up at the intimidating room full of nobles. She kneels silently in the middle of the massive council chamber. Without hesitating, she formally states her name as Lila. An eye twitches in the crowd as panic begins to set in. Countess Stella is absolutely fuming, silently freaking out over why her secret assassin is suddenly testifying. Dropping a massive bombshell, Lila introduces herself as a first-ranked agent of House Koshalin's shadow unit. Calyx plays along smoothly, casually asking her to elaborate on this secret task force. She reveals it's a brutal organization of battle-hardened orphans, given fake identities and sent undercover across the entire continent. Calyx presses her further, asking what her specific cover was in their noble house. When she admits she was Countess Stella's personal maid, Stella literally starts trembling with rage. Calyx hits her with the ultimate question: did Stella know her true identity the whole time? Before Lila can even answer, Stella completely loses her mind, screaming at the top of her lungs that this is a total setup. The other nobles are shocked, pointing out that operating an undercover spy network inside the kingdom is highly illegal. The chief financial officer, Gidris, starts sweating bullets now that there's an actual, living witness to their crimes. Another noble demands to know why Russell is just standing by and letting a lowly maid spout this nonsense. But Russell just glares down at them like an absolute final boss. He quickly shuts them down, declaring she isn't just a maid, but a captured criminal actively confessing to espionage. He tells the council they can decide if it's a setup after they hear all the juicy details. Idris is shaking like a leaf, terrified of what she's going to spill next. The council argues back and forth as tensions hit a boiling point. Finally, the room agrees they have a duty to hear the felon's full testimony. Idris hastily agrees, desperately trying to play it cool. Calyx takes control again, asking Lila to list her exact undercover duties. She casually confesses to sending monthly intel reports regarding Gidris's secret financial ledgers. Even worse, she leaked the late Count's private travel schedule and the political leanings of his trusted vassals. The nobles gasp in pure horror at the massive security breach. Calyx circles around her, dramatically asking for the details of her most recent mission. Looking dead ahead, Lila reveals she was ordered to trick Calyx into drinking poison and plant a forged suicide note in his room. Calyx coldly asks for the outcome of the assassination attempt. He admits she successfully made him ingest the deadly brew. But she got absolutely busted by Russell while sneaking back into the bedroom to plant the fake will. Stella snaps, jumping up and screaming at her own spy to shut her mouth. Desperate and panicking, the Countess demands to see some actual hard evidence. She stomps forward like a raging bull, totally ignoring her son's attempts to calm her down. She chuckles darkly, overly confident that they have absolutely no proof to tie her to the hit. Alex just smiles and casually calls on Deputy Count Russell to step up. Russell aggressively unrolls a scroll, shouting that this is the forged suicide note. He tells the whole room Lila was caught red-handed trying to place it on the young master's desk. But here's the ultimate plot twist. Russell reveals the document is written on a memory of the Earth Scroll. He explains it's a magical artifact that permanently records the thoughts and memories of anyone who touches it, meaning they can easily track down exactly who forged it. Idris goes completely pale, realizing this unarguable evidence will ruin them all. He darkly decides he might have to silence every single person in the hall to survive. Alex reads the traitor's mind like an open book, scoffing at his obvious little tricks. The dramatic, powerful swish of his cape. Alex thrusts his hand out and commands his backup to enter. Idris flinches in absolute shock. The heavy, terrifying clunk of armored boots suddenly echoes down the hallway. The council completely panics as a full squad of elite, armed knights storms the room. Stella glares daggers at the intruders, furious that the knight's order dared to bypass the regular guards and march straight into the sacred hall. The heavy thud of armored boots completely silences the grand hall as a full squad of knights marches in. Chief Financial Officer Gidra sweats bullets, demanding to know what Russell thinks he's doing. The old butler calmly announces that he checked the magical scroll and discovered a shocking truth. He explains he stationed his men to prevent any absolute chaos and politely demands everyone's cooperation. Gidris violently points his finger, screaming that bringing armed guards into the sacred room is literally a coup. Meanwhile, Stella's son Gramween shakes like a leaf, looking at his mother in pure terror. Stella grits her teeth, realizing the famously neutral Knight's order must have found undeniable proof to go this far. She completely panics, knowing if the military officially backs Calyx, she is utterly doomed. Playing it cool, Calyx asks his deputy what the kingdom's penalty is for attempting to murder a relative. Russell coldly replies that the punishment is hanging. Completely desperate, Stella grabs her son and screams that she planned the entire assassination alone. He turns to Calyx, pathetically playing the "I'm still your mother" card. With wild eyes, she begs him to believe her lies. But our boy just flashes a wicked smile and casually asks Lila if the Countess is telling the truth. Captured assassin immediately starts singing like a canary. She reveals that Gramween was actually sitting right in the room when the assassination orders were given. Calyx gives a menacing smirk while Stella's eyes widen in absolute horror. She aggressively hugs her son, screaming at the top of her lungs that the maid is lying. Calyx looks down at her like absolute trash, brushing off her excuses since she shouldn't have tried to poison him in the first place. He claps his hands, ready to finally wrap things up. With his enemies completely cornered, he officially announces they've reached the climax of their fox hunt. He stands tall, looking absolutely majestic in his victory. Stella is forcibly pushed down onto the table, grunting in defeat. Suddenly, Gramween violently slams his hands onto the desk. Spoiled Prince drops to the floor, completely submitting. Stella screams her son's name, violently thrashing against the guards. Calyx watches the absolute spectacle unfold in front of him. Gramween grovels at the feet of Calyx and Russell, sending shockwaves of whispers through the council. Idris and the other nobles are completely flabbergasted by the second heir's sudden surrender. Still kneeling, Gramween calls out his brother's name. With tears streaming down his face, he begs Calyx to spare his mother's life, totally disregarding his own fate. The knights harshly pin Stella down as she screams for him to stop. The council murmurs, feeling pity as the second son begs for mercy. Gramween looks absolutely shattered, making some nobles whisper that Calyx is being too cruel. Calyx instantly realizes the kid is putting on a massive show to make him look like the bad guy. Staring a hole through him, Calyx asks if this pathetic pity party is the reaction he wanted. But then he pivots, gently tapping Gramween's shoulder and claiming he can't ignore such a sincere plea. He strikes a brutal deal: if Gramween openly confesses to everything, he'll take execution off the table. But his eye glows with a terrifying glint as he warns the boy that his confession is final, so he better choose wisely. Refusing to let her son take the fall, Stella throws an absolute fit. He aggressively commands Gramween to stop talking right now. Then she turns her wrath on Calyx, screaming that he's a complete scoundrel. She points her finger, demanding to know how he dares to order his own brother around. But Gidris completely turns on her, shouting that an attempted murderer has absolutely zero say in the hall. Calyx mentally groans, annoyed that Stella's screeching is ruining his perfect trap. As she continues to run her mouth, Russell finally loses his patience. The old knight barks a command, ordering his guards to seize the criminal immediately. The knights violently grab her while she thrashes around, screaming, "Do you know who I am?" Gramween watches in pure agony as his mother gets dragged away like a common thug. A knight forces a heavy metal gag right into Stella's mouth to finally shut her up, leaving Gramween to suffer in total silence. In the grand hall, the tension is thick as Gramween kneels on the marble floor. The blonde protagonist coldly asks if the boy finally admits to the poisoning attempt. Sweating bullets, Gramween hesitates under the intense pressure. Defeated, he hangs his head and quietly confesses to the crime. Our boy knows Gramween only confessed to milk the crowd for pity, but he doesn't let up, pressing Gramween on whether this was all part of his little master plan. The deputy count steps in, announcing that since Gramween confessed, they'll keep the Earth Scroll's memories a secret. He even offers a reduced sentence for the early confession. But there's a massive catch. Gramween has to permanently shut down his own mana hole. In this kingdom, mana is absolutely everything. Without it, you can't become a knight or join the ruling class. Gramween looks absolutely terrified at the demand. He knows he's backed into a corner while his mother, Countess Stella, struggles furiously in her restraints. If he refuses, his mother's true crimes will drop, leading straight to her execution. Realizing he has no way out, Gramween decides he has to protect her at all costs. Stella thrashes around like a wild animal, trying to stop him. But the reality is harsh. Losing his mana hole is basically a death sentence for his noble status. Taking a deep breath, Gramween accepts his grim fate. He glares at the deputy count, demanding they keep their end of the bargain. The old man nods solemnly in agreement. He hands over the magical scroll needed for the permanent ritual. Gramween bites down hard on the scroll, bracing himself for the pain. He slowly raises his hand to his stomach. Suddenly, a glowing ring of mana flares to life around his waist. His mother is absolutely losing it in the background, muffled screams echoing through the hall. Because once this process starts, there's no going back, not even a Grandmaster can fix it. Gramween violently triggers the seal, taking the full brunt of the spell. Golden energy swirls around him like a raging mini-tornado. The protagonist just watches with dead eyes, completely unbothered. The magical circle shrinks directly into Gramween's core. With a blinding flash of light, the spell finishes its devastating work. The glowing spot on his stomach completely fades to nothing. Crowd gasps as his mana hole is officially shut down forever. Despite losing his powers, Gramween actually looks relieved knowing his mother is safe. He turns to her with a sad look, saying she doesn't understand how the world works. Trying to cope, he jokes that he always wanted to be an artist anyway, but Stella manages to crack her gag open. She completely snaps, screaming a bloody lifelong curse at our protagonist. The truth is brutal. Without mana, Gramween's future is totally cooked. He'll never rise above the rank of a low-tier knight, just like Lila standing quietly nearby. The defeated boy simply collapses onto his weeping mother. Seeing the emotional wreck, our protagonist actually feels a tiny pang of guilt for ruining a middle schooler's life. But he quickly shakes it off, reminding himself this is just a game and acting soft will get him killed later. Ice cold again, he orders the deputy count to wrap up the sentencing. The giant courtroom falls silent as the final verdicts are delivered. Countess Stella and Gramween are officially ordered to be locked away in the annex building. The protagonist doesn't even spare them another glance as they pass by. The guards immediately drag the disgraced mother and son out of the hall. He turns back around, completely unfazed by the family drama. Now it's time to clean up the rest of the trash. Next up is the chief financial officer who leaked the documents. The deputy count barks the order to strip the old man of his position and throw him in prison. The corrupt official cries like a baby, begging for mercy as the heavily armored guards haul him away. The disgraced official screams at the guards to let him go, calling them low-rank nobodies. But the armored knight isn't having it and completely clocks the old man in the gut to shut him up. The guards mercilessly drag him out of the hall by his collar like a sack of potatoes. Alex watches the whole thing go down with a dangerously satisfied smirk. Meanwhile, the remaining nobles are absolutely sweating bullets, wondering if they're next on the chopping block. They whisper among themselves, realizing that if Viscount Russell is taking orders from Calix, the knight's order must be backing the young lord. The room comes to a chilling realization: the brutal fight for succession is officially over. They realize Calix deliberately used Russell to flex his new authority. He shoots the terrified crowd an icy side-eye. It's a crystal clear warning to anyone thinking about crossing him. Next up, the guard captain nervously awaits his fate. Russell slaps him with strict probation, confining him to his home with zero outside contact. Then the chief administration officer, Garrod, bows his head and offers to resign to take the blame for the whole mess. But Calix pauses, knowing Garrod is highly competent and well-respected by his subordinates. Realizing firing him would cause massive backlash, Calix smoothly rejects the resignation. Instead, he slams a massive stack of papers directly into Garrod's chest. It's a hit list of suspect officers. Calix orders them all suspended and tasks Garrod with finding replacements immediately. Garrod respectfully accepts the heavy burden. Calix turns his attention back to the deputy count to finish cleaning house. He announces that almost every single officer will be placed under investigation. He casually suggests they need to appoint a new chief financial officer right away. Garrod starts panicking, begging the young master to show some mercy to the minor offenders. He argues that if they lose this many officials, the estate's work will grind to a total halt. But Calix isn't playing games, pointing out that you can't trust traitors with the treasury. He flashes a terrifyingly bright smile, asking Garrod if showing leniency would make the traitors grateful or just overly confident. Shutting Garrod down completely, Calix states they simply chose the wrong side to back. His eyes glow with cold determination as he declares his mind is made up. Garrod literally gets chills running down his spine. He realizes this ruthless tactician is nothing like the fragile, crybaby kid they used to know. The surrounding nobles watch the exchange in absolute disbelief. If even the great Garrod is helpless against Calyx, they know they stand zero chance. Calyx cracks a sinister grin under the shadows. With this massive power play, he has officially taken command of nearly all the estate's authority. Suddenly, his eyes flare with a bright, magical energy. A high-tech system window pops up, revealing Garrod's hidden character stats and loyalty levels. Calyx rapidly scans the room, pulling up the hidden data for every single official present. Glowing holographic screens float over everyone's heads like a straight-up video game interface. Calyx smiles like a true villain, realizing how easily he can manipulate the board now. With the system sorting out the loyalists from the hostile faction, his enemies have nowhere to hide. He notes that while veterans like Garrod are tough to sway, the others are an open book. He plots to completely purge the opposing faction and drive away anyone sitting on the fence. Checking the list of names, he formulates a totally ruthless strategy. He plans to pit the useless officials against each other in a twisted loyalty contest, cackling to himself like an absolute menace. The remaining nobles start freaking out, wondering why he's laughing so creepily. Terrified of losing their heads, they realize they need to get on his good side right now. The panicked officials practically trample each other to introduce themselves and kiss up to the new boss. Calyx instantly switches his persona, throwing up an innocent, beaming smile to calm the chaotic crowd. Viscount Russell watches the bizarre scene unfold, just scratching his head in confusion. Later that night, the massive castle finally falls quiet. Inside, someone stretches their arm high with a satisfied groan, ready to enjoy their hard-earned victory. After a crazy day of power plays, Calyx flops backward onto his bed. He stares at the ceiling, completely exhausted but wearing a massive smile. He thinks back to his past life, where he was the exact definition of ordinary, average grades, average looks. But he always believed that if he could beat an impossible game, he could finally be someone special. And he actually did it, becoming the first player in history to clear it. The in-game NPC congratulated him, officially recording his name for ascending to the divine throne. Remembering his final moments in the real world, he recalls wishing to be reborn in the game's continent to escape his boring life. Suddenly, his eyes snap wide open as the realization hits him like a freight train. He remembers the exact words the game told him at the very beginning. He was born with a small, worthless soul. But if he survived the chaos, defeated the evil god, and took the throne, his ultimate wish would be granted. Calyx shoots up from his bed, completely mind-blown. He realizes his random passing thought about being reborn actually counted as his grand prize wish. He stares blankly, looking completely dead inside at the massive scam. Defeated, he faceplants right back into his pillow. But then a wild idea hits him. Maybe if he clears the world again, he'll score a second wish. Pumped up by this pure copium, he immediately passes out and starts snoring. The next morning, bright sunlight floods into his massive bedroom. Calyx stretches out with a huge yawn, ready to start the grind. He paces around, wondering where to begin. Since he doesn't recognize the name Shesson, he tries to pull up a map. Just by thinking about it, a massive holographic screen flashes to life in front of him. A system notification pops up, reminding him he already conquered this continent in his past life. As a completion reward, all map markers have been instantly unlocked. His eyes practically turn into sparkling stars when he realizes what this means. It's not just a regular map, it's a fully detailed cheat sheet. Every hidden ruin, dungeon, and secret location from the game is perfectly marked for him to exploit. Calyx literally rolls around on his bed like a giddy toddler, laughing like an absolute maniac. But then he stops, a serious question popping into his head. What year is it? The system pulls up the imperial calendar, showing the year 289. Calyx slumps back onto the couch, doing the math. The game's main story doesn't even start until 294. Then it clicks, the reason he never heard of House Shesson in the original game is because his entire territory is fated to be wiped off the map in 5 years. He completely loses his mind. He suddenly remembers Viscount Russell yelling at him about how terrible their finances are. Desperate for answers, he opens the territory's financial status window. Instantly, blaring warning alarms blast through the room. A massive red danger notification reflects in his panicked eyes. Financial situation is straight up apocalyptic. Stressing out, he seriously considers just scraping up whatever gold is left and going on the run. But he quickly shuts that down. He can make money anywhere, but owning land through noble blood is a rare asset he can't throw away. He dives deeper into the financial window, swiping through the holographic data to find the leak. He notices the tax income from the farms is totally normal, and the defense budget isn't the problem either. Trying to find the missing link, he checks the territory's active bonds. Calyx throws his head back with a groan, overwhelmed by reading 10 years' worth of reports at once. He finally spots the biggest issue. Trade was completely cut off between them and the neighboring desert kingdom. That explains the total lack of tariff income, but there's a bigger problem. He completely rages, wondering where the hell his predecessors borrowed so much money. The interest alone is higher than their total tax revenue. Frustrated, he tears at his hair. The system only gives him raw numbers, but he needs actual context. He groans, rubbing his temples in annoyance at the massive debt trap. Suddenly, his eyes widen as a light bulb goes off in his head. A wicked grin spreads across his face as he remembers he has the corrupt former chief financial officer locked away in the dungeon right now. Alex descends the dark stone steps into the estate's dungeon, planning to squeeze some answers out of Gidris. The guard snaps to attention at the bottom of the stairs, surprised to see the young master down there. Alex pinches his nose in disgust, complaining about the absolute stench of the sewerless prison. The guard starts kissing up to him immediately, acting like it's a huge honor to meet him in person. But Calix instantly recognizes the guy as a former supporter of the disgraced guard captain. Realizing the guard is just a clout chaser who follows whoever is in power, Calix decides to play a little mind game. The guard looks confused as Calix suddenly stops in his tracks. Our boy knows exactly how to manipulate weak-willed people like this. He flashes a totally innocent smile, suggesting that wrongly accused prisoners should get a chance to clear their names. The spineless guard instantly agrees, chuckling nervously to stay on his good side. Then Calix drops the real task. He orders the guard to investigate any prisoners who were secretly released early. The guard throws up a crisp salute, treating Calix like the official lord of the territory. Calix notes how fast the guy threw his old boss under the bus. But honestly, he doesn't care. A useful pawn is still a useful pawn. He coldly reminds the guard that he isn't the lord just yet, making the guy apologize profusely. Internally, Calix chuckles at himself, realizing he's acting exactly like the corrupt politicians he used to hate. The guard finally leads him to the right cell. Inside, Gidris is throwing a tantrum, demanding to know why he's being served actual slop. The old man acts totally arrogant, convinced he won't be locked up for long. Calix just stares at him through the bars, asking exactly how he plans to get out. He mocks the former official, asking if he's planning a prison break. But Gidris just laughs, claiming he's been waiting for Calix to show up and talk about the massive debt. Calix isn't playing along. He coldly tells Gidris he doesn't owe him a dime and promises to have a sturdy rope ready for his hanging. The guard stands perfectly still, ignoring the tension. Gidris drops the act, reminding Calix that he managed the estate's finances for over 2 decades. He smirks, knowing Calix only came down here because he's totally desperate to understand the territory's debt trap. Calix glares at the cocky old man with pure venom. Gidris chuckles, thinking he finally has the upper hand. But Calix suddenly turns away and calls out to the prison officer. He casually asks if they have a torturer on staff, making the guard flinch in shock. With a terrifying shout, Calix orders him to bring the torturer immediately. The guard realizes he's dead serious and practically sweats bullets. He sprints out of the cell block like his life depends on it. The guard huffs and puffs down the hallway, realizing he completely underestimated the young master. He finally understands that Calix is the absolute apex predator here. Meanwhile, Gidris starts panicking. Going straight to torture was definitely not part of his plan. Calix crouches down, looking him dead in the eye. He tells the old man he probably won't last long under the blade, but he should try his best. Calix promises that if Gidris holds out, he might just show mercy and give him a slow, agonizing death instead of the noose. He flashes a smile that is straight-up demonic. Gidris's heart pounds out of his chest as he stares into the eyes of a true madman. Completely broken, the old man stammers in fear. He desperately grabs the iron bars, begging for his life and promising he has info that will make Calix rich. Calix's terrifying aura vanishes instantly as he casually tells him to spill it. Gidris reveals the estate borrowed a massive fortune from a shady merchant named Gerard. He explains that Gerard manages a secret vault for House Koshilin, helping them dodge royal mining taxes. Gidris suggests they just snitch on the merchant to the royals so they won't have to pay him back, but Calix immediately counters. What if Gerard sells the debt bonds to House Koshilin for cheap before getting arrested? If that happens, Calix would be completely owned by a rival house. Gidris is left speechless, stunned that the young master thought 10 steps ahead. Suddenly, the guard comes sprinting back down the hall, shouting that the torturer has arrived. The guard finally returns, proudly announcing he brought House Shessen's absolute best torturer. A massive, intimidating brute in a creepy mask steps into the light, wielding a heavy axe. Gidris completely loses it, screaming in pure terror. He rattles the iron bars like a madman, begging for mercy and promising he knows about 100,000 gold. Calix's eyes literally sparkle at the mention of the massive illicit funds. But he plays it cool, giving the begging old man a dismissive side eye as the torturer looms behind him. Calix turns his back, pretending to walk away. The cell door creaks open and the torturer steps inside to get to work. Panicking, Gidris desperately screams for them to wait. He drops the ultimate bombshell. He knows exactly where Gerard's secret vault is located. That instantly catches Calix's attention, making him stop in his tracks. The torturer absolutely slams his heavy boot down, pinning Gidris to the floor. The old man squeaks in fear as the masked brute glares down with glowing red eyes. Trapped under the boot, Gidris swears on his decades of service that the info is legit. Calix stares down at the pathetic sight and demands the full truth. He coldly asks why a financial officer would know the location of a secret merchant vault. Gidris hesitates, sweating heavily under the pressure. Calix isn't playing games and orders the torturer to proceed. The brute grabs Gidris's hand, ready to start snapping his fingers like twigs, making the old man instantly crack. Gidris screams that he tried to loot the vault himself but completely failed. Calyx raises an eyebrow, knowing the cowardly old man wouldn't dare go there personally. Cornered, Gidris admits he hired a thief to do the dirty work. Calyx asks exactly how much he paid the mercenary. Gidris stammers out the word 3. Calyx scoffs, getting annoyed at the thought of a measly 300 gold. But then the real number drops 3,000 gold. Calyx stands completely stunned. He asks Gidris to repeat himself, not believing his ears. The old man trembles, knowing he just dug his own grave. Suddenly, Calyx bursts into absolute maniacal laughter. The guard thinks Calyx is laughing out of pure, unadulterated rage and suggests they just execute him right now. Calyx's aura turns pitch black as he realizes 3,000 gold is half their annual tax revenue. He glares daggers at the old man, realizing Gidris stole the territory's own funds to hire the thief. Gidris cries that he had no choice because the vault key was a magic crystal ball. The mention of a magic artifact immediately piques Calyx's interest. He grabs the iron bars, ordering Gidris to sit up and explain everything. The old man reveals that just making a replica of the key cost 2,500 gold. Calyx starts connecting the dots in his head. He looks at the pathetic old man, realizing he probably got scammed. Calyx points out that the thieves were likely working with Gerard from the very beginning to fleece him. Gidris refuses to believe it, swearing he personally saw Gerard open the vault with the crystal ball. Calyx presses him for the exact location. Defeated, Gidris reveals the vault is hidden in the Golda Plateau. He claims he doesn't know the exact coordinates because he was blindfolded, but Calyx's system map already boots up in his mind. Calyx smirks, staring through the glowing overlay of the region's map. The guard and the torturer just stare at Calyx, wondering what he's looking at in thin air. Calyx zooms in on the Golda Plateau on his mental map, spotting a bright red marker. The system pings, revealing a hidden ruins location right in that exact area. Knowing he needs more info, Calyx tries to remember if anyone in his ranks knows the plateau. He instantly remembers a task force of elite, battle-hardened orphans who trained exactly in that region. Without wasting another second, Calyx barks at the guard that he's leaving and turns on his heel. Gidris is left clinging to the bars like a lost puppy, totally confused as the young lord completely ghosts him. Calyx walks away from the dungeon, leaving the screaming behind him. He mentally pieces things together. Gidris embezzled 3,000 gold, and this prison officer was totally taking bribes to look the other way. Annoyed by the corruption, he decides neither of them is getting off the hook. He suddenly stops and calls out to Officer Schuer, making the guy flinch hard. Calyx casually drops the bomb that they just confirmed Gidris's massive embezzlement. He shoots the guard a knowing look, asking if he knew anything about it. Schuer instantly plays dumb, sweating bullets as he denies everything. Calyx smirks internally, knowing the guard is absolutely terrified that Gidris ratted him out. Deciding to turn up the heat, Calyx casually sighs, bluffing that Gidris told him a few interesting things while Schuer was gone. He coldly adds that he's usually merciful, but his patience is running thin. That completely breaks the guard. Schuer throws himself to the ground, crying for forgiveness and cursing Gidris for snitching. He grovels like a pathetic worm, promising never to take bribes again. But when Schuer slowly peeks up to see the young lord's reaction, Calyx is completely gone, pulling a total ninja vanish in the middle of the courtyard. Left alone looking like a fool, Schuer curses Gidris's name in pure rage. He vows to make the old man pay for throwing him under the bus. Meanwhile, Calyx is just hiding behind a nearby well, snickering like an absolute menace at the chaos he caused. But his little prank is interrupted when he hears a heavy footstep behind him. A massive, terrifying shadow suddenly looms over his shoulder. Startled, Calyx whips around to see who caught him sneaking around. He finds a tall, stoic young man staring down at him. Recognizing the Blue Lion Knight's uniform, Calyx stands up and demands to know what he wants. The knight gives a respectful bow, introducing himself as Kraut Salim, assigned by the deputy count to be Calyx's personal guard. As Kraut pledges his loyalty, Calyx instantly boots up the system window to check his stats. Calyx's eyes widen in shock. This random guy's abilities are absolutely insane. With a max combat level in the 70s and an incredibly rare A rank in military aptitude, Kraut has the potential to be a top 100 fighter on the entire continent. Calyx squints, trying to remember the game's lore. He wonders if this guy could be a famous hidden character. He remembers the legend of a ruthless, demon-slaying assassin who serves the Black Prince in total secrecy. Could this random knight actually be the legendary Bringer of Death? But after taking a second look, Calyx furiously shakes his head. Bringer of Death was supposed to be skinny and grim. Meanwhile, Kraut is built like an absolute brick house. Plus, Calyx notes that the guy's big, dopey eyes are way too pure for a cold-blooded assassin. Deciding not to overthink it, Calyx figures having an A-rank powerhouse by his side is a massive win either way. Kraut suddenly snaps him out of his thoughts, making Calyx jump. The knight asks if he's okay, totally clueless to the fact that Calyx was just heavily analyzing his entire existence. Kraut reports that a merchant named Gerard Milsers is here asking for an audience. Calyx freezes. That's the exact same merchant holding the territory's massive debt. A wicked smile spreads across Calix's face as he realizes the scammer just walked right into his trap. Fired up, Calix strides off to the meeting room, leaving Kraut to hurriedly chase after him. Watching his new guard jog behind him, Calix concludes the guy might be strong, but he's definitely not the sharpest tool in the shed. They arrive at the grand reception room and Calix pushes the heavy doors open. He steps inside with an air of complete authority, Kraut standing tall behind him like a loyal guard dog. Calix locks eyes with his guest, putting on a perfectly polite face. The man introduces himself as Gerard Milsers, claiming to run a humble little trading company. Calix smoothly plays along, walking forward and complimenting the merchant's reliable reputation. He flashes a bright, welcoming smile, claiming he always appreciates skilled businessmen. Gerard humbly bows to accept the flattery, but Calix quickly flips the script. He coldly asks why a prosperous merchant would seek out a young, titleless boy instead of doing business with the acting deputy count. Gerard chuckles, completely unbothered by the direct question. He shoots Calix a slick, calculating smirk, stating that the deputy count is only temporary, and Calix is the true master of the house. The sly merchant flatters Calix, asking who would dare object to the young lord's decisions. Calix plays it humble, reminding Gerard that he's still only one of 2 candidates for succession. But Gerard just rubs his hands together like a greedy cartoon villain, claiming the competition is basically over. Calix raises an eyebrow, asking where he heard that since nothing is official yet. Gerard flinches slightly but quickly covers it up with a nervous laugh. He smoothly apologizes if he overstepped his bounds. Kraut just watches quietly as Calix maintains his deadpan stare. Gerard proudly pats his chest, boasting that surviving as a merchant means always having the best insider info. Internally, Gerard realizes the rumors about Calix being a naive fool were totally wrong. You can tell the kid is actually cold, calculating, and dangerously clever. However, he notes that the rumors about Calix's stunning beauty are absolutely spot on. A sickening grin creeps across the merchant's face as he imagines selling Calix off for a massive fortune. Suddenly, Calix stands up, ready to end the meeting. He glares down with piercing eyes, warning Gerard that if he's just here to waste time, this conversation is over. Panicking that his plan is falling apart, Gerard practically throws himself into a deep bow. Sweating heavily, he desperately tries to butter Calix up with more gross compliments. Calix looks at him with pure disgust, wondering what is wrong with this creep. He drops back onto the couch, demanding the merchant cut the small talk and get straight to the point. Gerard finally straightens up and reveals the real reason for his visit. He drops the bomb about the massive debt the late count owes his company. Calix lazily picks at his ear, acting like he couldn't care less. He totally plays dumb, claiming it's the first he's heard of it since their chief financial officer is currently rotting in a cell. Kraut flicks a speck of dust away, visibly grossed out by the whole situation. Gerard expected this exact response and smirks like he's holding all the cards. His smile widens into a terrifying grin as he realizes his master plan is finally coming together. The twisted merchant literally daydreams about Calix crying and begging on his knees once reality hits. He absolutely lives to watch nobles fall into total despair. Getting back to business, Gerard explains that per their contract, he can demand a lump sum repayment after 3 years. He hits them with the deadline. They have exactly 2 weeks to cough up 60,000 gold. Kraut's jaw practically hits the floor as he gasps at the insane number. Calix just sits there with a completely blank, unbothered expression. But Gerard's ego is so massive he misreads the silence, assuming the young lord is just struggling to hold back tears. Kraut is absolutely short-circuiting, trying to comprehend how much 60,000 gold actually is. Gerard chuckles darkly, soaking in the tension. Kraut desperately steps forward, begging the merchant for an extension. Gerard gives a fake, dramatic sigh, claiming the house's credibility tanked when the old count died. He acts like he's doing them a massive favor by waiting this long to collect. He practically demands Calix show him some gratitude for his so-called generosity. Kraut looks like he's about to have a full-blown panic attack. But Calix sees right through the act, knowing the tight deadline is a deliberate trap to steal his land. Suddenly, Calix stands up, looking completely unfazed by the threat. With absolute confidence, he casually states that securing 60,000 gold will be a total piece of cake. Gerard beams, completely writing Calix off as an arrogant, delusional kid who doesn't understand the real world. He knows that kind of cash is impossible to pull together without major connections. The merchant flashes a sinister grin, fully expecting to seize the entire territory when Calix inevitably defaults. Playing the polite guest, Gerard bows and excuses himself from the room. As he walks out, he fantasizes about watching the young lord beg for mercy. He gives one last respectful bow at the door. He shoots a condescending smirk, wishing Calix good luck with a sickeningly sweet tone. Meanwhile, Kraut is left standing there, counting on his fingers like a confused kindergartner, still trying to do the math on his miserable salary. Calix sighs, telling his stressed-out guard to stop doing mental math and just sit down because he's being distracting. Kraut is totally freaking out, screaming that they could lose the entire territory. But Calix completely ignores him, hyper-focused on his glowing map. he deduces the creepy merchant's secret vault is hidden right in the Golda Plateau ruins. He taps the holographic marker, eager to dig up more info on the site. He knows surviving the Aren continent is no joke. The Golda Plateau is a straight-up high-level danger zone, swarming with brutal monsters like giant Sasquatches. So hardcore he even avoided the area back when this was just a game. Realizing he needs a guide, Calyx marches off to find someone familiar with the plateau, leaving Kraut super confused. Staring up at the moon, Calyx decides it's time to cash in a favor from the assassin currently laying low in their ranks. Kraut trails closely behind him as they approach a stone building. The guard bows deeply, but Calyx dismisses him, stating he needs a private chat with the prisoner inside. Kraut mentions this place used to be Gidris's official residence before he was locked up. They step inside, and Calyx is surprised to find the room completely spotless and simple. Suddenly, a voice rings out, casually claiming they reorganized the place. Calyx turns around, slightly caught off guard. Lila, the maid-turned-assassin, walks out looking absolutely stunning, casually insulting Gidris's gaudy taste. Calyx smirks, noting that she seems to be doing pretty well for a prisoner. He just shrugs, throwing him a sassy reply. Kraut instantly snaps at her disrespect, charging forward to teach her some manners. But Lila ignores the knight, glaring at Calyx and accusing him of tricking her. She claims since he poisoned her, it's only fair she poisons him right back. Calyx realizes she figured out his little bluff about the fake poison. He asks if he's ever heard of Cetes' puppet. Getting worked up, she demands to know how a spoiled kid got his hands on such a high-tier toxin. Calyx stays totally chill, smirking as he notes its main ingredient is literally just white radish. Lila glares, warning him the poison has over 3,000 antidotes and she holds the only one that can save him. Calyx turns to face her fully, impressed she caught on so fast. She correctly guesses he only came here because he needs to use her. But she hits him with a nasty glare, making it clear she's done taking his orders. Switching tactics, she slides onto the table and seductively suggests a little intimate time might change her mind. He flashes a wicked smirk, telling him he'd have to be very good. Calyx just stares at her with a deadpan, unimpressed look. Meanwhile, Kraut completely loses his mind. He draws his blade to execute her for the blatant disrespect, but Calyx quickly barks at him to stand down. Dropping the games, Calyx tells Lila he's actually here to offer her a chance at survival. He drops the seductive act, totally confused. He explains that if he kicked her out of the castle right now, she'd be dead in seconds. He lays out the harsh reality. House Shesin and House Koshalin are officially at war. Kraut glares at her, keeping a tight grip on his sword hilt. Calyx points out that Lila just made Countess Stella look like the villain of the century and ruined the heir's monocore. He hits her with the cold truth. As the decisive witness, she's got a massive target on her back. Reality crashes down on Lila as she mutters that House Koshalin won't rescue her. They'll kill her to erase her testimony. Even if they silence her, it won't fix Gramween's mana hole, meaning their entire takeover plot is permanently cooked. He slumps on the table, the horrible truth sinking in. Calyx coldly states that nobles never show mercy to peasant pawns who outlive their usefulness. Lila realizes she's just another hunting dog being tossed aside, trembling with pure despair. Gritting her teeth, her sadness morphs into absolute, blinding rage. Suddenly, she snatches a heavy metal candlestick off the table. Kraut instantly notices the movement. Screaming at the top of her lungs, Lila lunges directly at Calyx for killing blow. The sharp spike glints dangerously in the moonlight as it comes down. But before it connects, a loud metallic clang echoes through the room. Kraut intercepts the attack in a flash, brutally smacking her aside and sending her tumbling across the floor like a ragdoll. Kraut points his massive sword at Lila, furious at the lowly assassin for daring to attack Lord Calyx. Calyx calmly thanks his guard for the save but tells him to chill out with the name-calling. He casually steps forward, admitting he actually owes her for helping him secure the succession. Calyx drops some deep wisdom, explaining that people usually hate the messenger of their doom more than the actual cause. Lila glares up at him from the floor, asking why that is. Calyx simply states that it's just easier to shift the blame. He casually plops down on the floor right in front of her, explaining that venting anger brings temporary relief. But he knows she's not the type to just roll over, judging by how fiercely she clings to life. Lila hangs her head, trembling in defeat. But suddenly, she screams at the top of her lungs that she absolutely refuses to die. Calyx flashes a genuinely warm smile, loving her fighting spirit. He grins and tells her that's exactly what he wanted to hear. Getting down to business, he offers a solid deal. If she serves him, he'll protect her and her family from any assassins sent her way. But Lila snaps, instantly assuming he's threatening to take her family hostage. He lunges forward, screaming at him to leave them out of it. Calyx just throws his head back and laughs off the wild accusation. He coldly clarifies that her dying here doesn't affect him at all, since elite assassins are a dime a dozen. Lila realizes he's completely right. Nobles can and will replace her like a broken tool. But she pushes back, arguing there must be a specific reason he came all the way down here just to convince her. Calyx admits his first goal is just saving time, but the second reason is because he remembered something she said earlier. Lila looks totally confused. He holds up a single finger, giving her exactly 1 minute to answer a question. He asks if there's a place the adults strictly told the orphans never to go near. Kraut looks utterly lost while Lila genuinely ponders the memory. Alex then asks exactly when House Koshalin started training her secret assassin unit. Lila hesitates but reveals she was in the 6th round of trainees, meaning the program started about 15 years ago. Kraut jumps in, pointing out that's the exact same time the massive territory dispute started between House Koshalin and Ereborn. Alex pokes Kraut's arm, looking incredibly smug. He asks Lila if she gets what the big guy is thinking, but she's still completely clueless. Alex deadpans, clearly not surprised she didn't catch on. Kraut completely loses his cool, grabbing Lila by the face and yelling at her for mocking him while she furiously fights back. Alex shuts them both up, explaining that building a secret army takes an insane amount of cash. Kraut glares at Lila, calling her a fool for not realizing they must have struck a massive fortune to afford it. Alex agrees, stating it's safe to assume Koshalin suddenly found a huge new funding source back then. They used that secret money to train an elite shadow force, and dispatched them on covert missions just like they did with her. Lila starts connecting the dots, asking what all this secret cash has to do with the ancient ruin. Alex paces the room, dropping a geology lesson. Silver is often found mixed inside copper mines. Kraut's eyes widen as he realizes House Koshalin has been secretly mining illegal silver. Alex nods, confirming they definitely struck silver in their territory. But since all precious metals legally belong to the royal palace, finding a hidden ruin is the perfect cover. Lila gasps, realizing the ancient ruin is the ultimate stash spot. Alex grins like an absolute mastermind, confirming they'd never suspect a kid who's never left the castle. But Lila questions the endgame. Are they really going to declare war just to steal the funds? Kraut sighs, admitting House Shesin is way too weak for a full-scale war right now. Lila suggests just snitching to the royals, but Alex shuts that down since they wouldn't get a single coin out of it. And with House Shesin on the edge of bankruptcy, they desperately need that cash. Lila and Kraut stare at him, completely lost on what his actual plan is. Alex chuckles wickedly. Since the money is totally illegal, House Koshalin can't exactly report it if it gets stolen right. Kraut practically gets stars in his eyes as the ultimate heist plan finally clicks. Later, out in the courtyard, the crew gathers under the cover of darkness. But just as they're about to sneak out, the deputy count calls out, rushing toward the young master. Viscount Russell stops them, extremely worried that sending Kraut alone to the dangerous Golda Plateau is a terrible idea. He warns Alex that rushing into danger is basically asking for a death sentence. Alex just smiles, noting that the old man sounds like a worried grandpa. He smoothly explains that young knights like Kraut need real field experience, plus leaving the castle totally undefended is way too risky. Russell sighs, admitting the kid makes a solid point. He apologizes for doubting him, then immediately turns and fiercely glares at Kraut, threatening to end him if a single hair on Alex's head gets harmed. Kraut throws up goofy thumbs up, acting totally unserious, earning a swift smack to the back of the head from the Viscount. Squaring his shoulders, Russell calls the squad of soldiers to attention. He gives a passionate speech, reminding them that Alex just got out of a sict. But instead of resting, the young master is out here risking his life for their territory. The soldiers snap into a crisp salute, shouting their absolute loyalty. But Alex catches their side eyes, knowing these battle-hardened men won't truly respect a weak kid. Earning their trust is his next big mission. Later, Kraut leads Alex down a dark, creepy tunnel. They splash through an underground waterway, the perfect secret escape route from the castle. Kraut holds up a lantern, hyping up the squad to keep moving. Alex heavily pants as they climb, definitely feeling the burn from his weak stats. Kraut violently grips a rusty turnwheel, forcing the ancient hatch open with pure muscle. Alex breathes a sigh of relief, admitting he would have walked right past the hidden exit. Kraut reaches down, offering his master a hand up. Alex pokes his head out of the hatch, looking around the dusty room. Kraut explains they've popped up inside an old, abandoned windmill far past the castle walls. Alex's eyes widen, totally impressed by the setup. Outside, a fully prepped merchant caravan is waiting under the cover of night. Kraut smiles, gesturing toward the carriage like a proper butler. But when he calls him my lord, Alex snaps at him to drop the title. He orders Kraut to only call him young master, since broadcasting his true identity in contested territory is basically suicide. Watching his soldiers fumble around in merchant clothes, Alex mentally notes that their awkward movements are a total giveaway. Kraut runs up, eager for his next order. Alex asks if he brought the disguises as instructed. Kraut pinches his nose in absolute disgust, holding up a ridiculously raggedy and foul-smelling cloak. Alex smirks, teasingly asking if Kraut wants to play the porter while he plays the role of Lila's new husband on a honeymoon. Kraut completely freaks out, refusing to let the young master sit anywhere near that assassin wench. The nearby disguised soldiers glance over, confused by the sudden shouting. Alex glares daggers at Kraut, scolding the idiot for literally screaming the word assassin out loud. Kraut hilariously sulks like a scolded puppy. Trying to recover, he awkwardly offers a hand to the cloaked Lila as she steps outside. But Lila violently slaps his hand away, telling him to back off. Alex just watches with a deadpan stare, absolutely stunned by the hostility. He totally forgot about the game's hidden vassal interaction mechanic. If characters like each other, they get a massive synergy buff. But if they hate each other, they'll literally form factions and fight to the death. Looking up at the sky, Calyx starts to wonder if this world isn't just a game, but a real-life reflection created by a higher power. He decides the only way to fix this toxic squad dynamic is for Lila to prove her worth to the team. He smirks, thinking he might just have to help her pull it off from the shadows. Kraut reports they are ready to roll, and Calyx orders them to push as far as possible before sunrise. The disguised troops quickly load up the carts, hustling to get moving. Later that night, they camp out in the woods, having finally passed the last frontier village. Staring into the campfire, Calyx orders everyone to drop the disguises and prep for all-out war tomorrow. His eyes glow with absolute determination, declaring that their real master plan officially begins now. Dropping the act, the fully armored strike team marches into the dark, ready to absolutely wreck whoever stands in their way. The disguised caravan rolls steadily through the dense forest. Up ahead, Kraut spots someone approaching. The scout they sent ahead sprints back to the group with urgent news. Panting heavily, the scout points down the road, warning them about a massive forest Sasquatch camp blocking the path. Kraut's eyes go wide, immediately asking how big the settlement is. The scout reveals there are 5 mud huts. Calyx quietly taps his guard's shoulder. He orders Kraut to get him up into one of the tall trees so he can scope out the threat himself. Kraut gives a goofy, eager grin, happy to help. He scoops Calyx up and leaps into the branches like an absolute unit. From their vantage point, they spot the clearing below. It's swarming with gigantic, red-eyed Sasquatches looking ready to tear someone apart. Kraut notes that these monsters are no joke, prompting Calyx to ask for his battle plan. The knight confidently suggests trapping them with fire arrows. Calyx completely loses his mind, screaming that setting a forest fire is a horrible idea. Kraut defends himself, arguing he just wants to protect the lives of his men. But Calyx shuts him down, refusing to experiment with unproven tactics. Calyx trembles slightly, frustrated because he knows exactly how these monsters work from the game, but he can't convince his men without sounding crazy. Kraut jumps back down to the ground as Calyx vows to come up with a better strategy. He knows that even if Kraut listens, the rest of the squad still doesn't trust him. Stepping up, Calyx orders the Blue Lion Knights to gather around. The soldiers murmur amongst themselves as they review the supposed battle plan. Internally, Calyx is absolutely sweating bullets because the strategy is literally just fight your hardest. He realizes that if he doesn't prove his worth right now, they'll just see him as dead weight. Sitting alone in the wagon, he agonizes over how to earn their respect. Stepping out, he looks deep in thought. Suddenly, Lila approaches from the shadows, saying she needs to talk. She bluntly drops a reality bomb. This current plan is going to get almost everyone killed. She points out that Kraut will definitely throw his life away just to protect Calyx. Calyx sighs, admitting he already knows that, catching her off guard. Confused, Lila asks why he's letting them march to their doom. Calyx grumbles that he's currently agonizing over how to actually get his subordinates to listen to him. But suddenly, a light bulb goes off in his head. He turns to the assassin, telling her to pitch her idea. Lila explains that Sasquatches are super protective of their young. The females will run with the babies while the males stay to fight. Once the babies are safely hidden, the males go completely berserk and fight to the death. Calyx casually says he knows the lore, asking what her actual strategy is. Lila hesitates, needing to clarify his main goal first. She asks if they just need to pass safely instead of wiping out the camp. Calyx confirms they just need a clear path. With that settled, Lila says they just need to show the monsters that their hideout isn't safe either. Her plan is wild. Kraut charges the mud huts while a separate squad attacks the hideout, forcing the males to leave the camp to protect their families. With the camp empty, the main caravan can slip right through. Calyx admits he thought of this too, but points out the massive flaw: who would volunteer for the suicide mission to attack the hideout? The enraged Sasquatches would absolutely hunt that squad down. Calyx calls it a death sentence, but Lila steps up and volunteers herself without hesitating. Calyx stares at her with a completely dumbfounded, blank expression. Lila calmly states this was her plan all along. Narrowing his eyes, Calyx asks if she happens to have the legendary Siren's Temptation herb on her. Lila gasps, totally shocked that he knows her secret stash. Calyx smirks, explaining it's the only logical reason she'd take the risk, since that specific herb completely blinds a Sasquatch's sense of smell. Lila looks at Calyx, noting that he's completely changed recently. She suddenly breaks into a coughing fit from the pungent herb, while Calyx praises her crazy plan. He locks eyes with her, telling her not to worry. Lila puffs out her chest, bragging that she knows this area like the back of her hand since she played here as a kid. Calyx eyes her suspiciously, asking why she's going out of her way to help him. He bluntly admits that if House Shessen falls, she's totally doomed too. Calyx smirks, noting he can't fully trust her yet but has no reason to doubt her right now. He asks if she's okay with getting 0 credit for this mission. Lila gives a solemn nod. Accepting her terms, Calyx mentions he has one last question before she goes. He looks up, waiting for the catch. Pointing into the dense woods, he recites a golden rule: always assume there are more Sasquatches than you think. Lila agrees, knowing the hunting party will inevitably return to join the brawl. He points out 2 different directions they're most likely to attack from. Narrowing it down, she points to a specific spot, explaining there's a goblin camp nearby that the monsters use for food. Calyx gives her an enthusiastic thumbs up, thrilled by the vital intel. He notes they don't have the manpower to stop the returning horde, and the knights would never let him go alone. Lila humbly brushes it off, guessing Kraut will just order the knights to block the path anyway. But then she smoothly mentions she has a couple of favors to ask. Kraut raises an eyebrow, instantly suspicious of the assassin. Lila leans in and whispers her request. Whatever she said, it definitely catches his interest. Suddenly, she flashes a stunningly genuine smile. Without warning, she reaches out and touches Calyx's hair, making him flinch hard. Calyx's heart practically skips a beat, completely caught off guard by the sudden closeness. He gives him a soft, teasing smile. Our young lord turns completely red, totally flustered by the interaction. Kraut loses his absolute mind in the background, yelling about what the heck she thinks she's doing. Lila casually pulls her hand back. Calyx stands there looking like a stunned deer until she mentions he had something in his hair. She laughs sweetly, holding up a torn leaf she just picked off him. Calyx blushes even harder, totally embarrassed by his reaction. Internally, he realizes exactly why people go crazy for beautiful idols, completely charmed by her. Kraut aggressively interrupts, stepping between them with a loud, warning cough. He forces a totally fake smile, asking if everything is alright over here. Calyx instantly snaps back to his tough persona, while Lila wonders why the night is being so icy. Remembering the mission, Calyx orders Kraut to hand over some equipment for Lila to use. He defends her to the knight, making it clear she's on a direct order from him, so don't freak out if she suddenly disappears. Kraut openly objects, stubbornly refusing to trust the assassin for even a second. Calyx stares him down, ordering him to trust his judgment since they are all in the same boat now. Kraut reluctantly yields with a heavy sigh, but Lila chimes in, saying she already has everything she needs. Suddenly, she drops her heavy cloak right in the middle of the camp. The surrounding soldiers immediately start whispering and staring. Underneath the cloak, she's rocking a skin-tight, tactical assassin bodysuit, casually tying her hair up. Kraut turns bright red, screaming in pure panic at the sudden wardrobe change. Lila ignores the flustered knight, standing tall and completely battle-ready. The soldier rolls up with a fresh supply cart. Without hesitating, Lila grabs a handful of the foul-smelling herb paste and slaps it right onto her face. She starts slathering the absolute sludge all over her body to completely mask her scent from the monsters. Kraut covers his nose, violently gagging as the putrid stench hits his nostrils. He wonders how she can even stomach the smell and if this gross tactic is actually necessary. But Lila's entire vibe shifts instantly. Her eyes turn ice cold as she draws her twin daggers, spinning them like a total boss, completely dialed in for the kill. Calyx watches Lila disappear into the woods, pleased that his hunch about her usefulness was spot on. She gives him a slight nod, asking if they should begin, and Calyx agrees. He offers her a few soldiers, but she rejects them, knowing they wouldn't follow her orders anyway. Calyx nods, leaving the entire risky mission in her capable hands. With a graceful leap, Lila disappears into the dense forest. Calyx turns to Kraut, declaring it's time for their main assault. Kraut charges forward, vowing to take down at least one Sasquatch with his first strike. Calyx mentally notes that the wind is blowing towards the Sasquatch camp. Lila moved with the wind to stay undetected, but the knights haven't learned anything from her. Just as Kraut prepares to strike, a massive Sasquatch suddenly turns its head. Kraut swings his sword, landing a direct hit on the monster. But Calyx is annoyed. Kraut should have aimed for a vital organ during an ambush, not just slashed it. Sasquatch roars in pain and rage, rears back ready to smash Kraut to a pulp. The massive boom, the ground shakes from the impact. Kraut quickly skids backward, narrowly dodging the attack. Calyx's eyes sparkle with excitement, completely thrilled by the raw, brutal reality of a live monster fight. Suddenly, more Sasquatches emerge from the camp, roaring furiously. Kraut's eyes widen, realizing they're completely surrounded. Sasquatches charge from every direction, creating an absolute storm of noise. Calyx thinks to himself that maybe setting the entire forest on fire wouldn't have been such a bad idea after all. Kraut screams, ordering his Blue Lion Knights to charge. Calyx quickly steps back, shouting at Kraut to hold on. Two knights flank Calyx, introducing themselves and assuring him they will protect him. One of the knights brutally clashes with a Sasquatch, sending a shockwave through the air. Knight's mana crackles with raw energy. He leaps into the air, charging up a powerful attack. He unleashes his special move. With a blinding kaboom, a massive explosion of light erupts from his sword, obliterating the monster. The ground trembles violently from the sheer force of the blast.